I thought
all I heard was Alexander S, and I was like, oh, it's like superstar Alexander Gerry lives around here.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait till a later feature match. I would expect to see him.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, so they're starting. Did you catch? I thought Alexander won the dice roll, but I'm not certain.
I'm not sure. Just for those of you just joining us, this is Joey Pasco with SCG Live, bringing you live coverage of the Star City Games San Jose Open Series standard portion. I'm here with Gavin Verhey. We're watching round 3. This is the first round of video coverage, and this is Gerry Thompson with Mono Black Vampires against Alexander Sperling with what looks like a red-white Boros aggro list.
All right, so it looks like they both kept their hands, and Sperling's off for the races with a fetch land.
Yep.
Good old shuffling.
Only 1-1 guy.
Goblin Guide to start, and he flips, looked like a swamp.
Okay. Go.
All right, so Goblin Guide comes over, swings. Is that
Is that Viscera Seer?
I sure hope so. It looks like Ghoul Draw's Vampire. No, that's Viscera Seer. Sorry, I was just looking at
Screen's better resolution.
Yeah, I was looking at the incorrect screen, which has a little worse resolution. So we have a Goblin Guide from the Boros player, and then Viscera Seer on the other side. Gets in with Guide, and now he's got GOP. That's a pretty good start for Alexander here.
Boros is a scary deck to play against. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't played against it with vampires, but I'll tell you against or with a control deck, watching them go turn one. Yeah. What's the now? So
Steplinks?
Steplinks. I couldn't think of the Boros cat is what I was thinking. Turn 1 Steplinks, turn 2 fetch land Steplinks. I mean, it's ridiculous, but you know, this is just as explosive here with the Goblin Guide. There's the GOP getting the bonus from landfall from a Terramorphic Expanse.
Yeah, and the thing about the Boros deck is it's really hard to play against sometimes because you just don't know how big their creatures are going to be at any given turn. Are they going to have the fetch land pump up their GOP, you know?
Right.
Or, you know, they could just play an equipment. Like we've seen Stoneforge Mystic here in Alexander's hand, and, you know, he'd go fetch a sort of Body Mind or a Basilisk Collar or something of that nature. And, I mean, Gerry had the Doomblade, fortunately, for that GOP, but he's still kind of on the back foot here. That Lonely Viserys here isn't doing a whole lot, and the card you really want to play to help out your Viserys here is Bloodghast, which is not very good against the red-white Boros deck.
Yeah, can't block. That's pretty significant.
They cannot block. That is, in fact, an issue. So here comes the Mystic out here, so he'll save the Terramorphic Expanse for later, and he goes to find Adventuring Gear. Once again, like I said, it's so hard to know like how much damage that Boros deck is going to be able to deal at any turn.
Right.
So Gerry cracks Verdant Catacombs. And playing a 3-drop, think we could see Captivating Vampire? Or what do you think we're going to see out of Gerry here?
I don't know.
Or Gatekeeper Malakir, potentially?
Yeah, it could be Gatekeeper, but we'll see what happens.
Yep, here comes the Gatekeeper.
Stem of the Tide.
I mean, it's going to just take down that Mystic, I would guess.
Yeah.
Unless he doesn't want to get the reveal off Goblin Guide. This situation's kind of tricky because sometimes the red player is worried about, like, well, I don't want my opponent to draw too many lands off Goblin Guide. Like, you know, I'd rather take down the point of damage or whatever. But I found that usually you want to, and he does crack the Goblin Guide, I found that usually you want to keep the Goblin Guide because the 1 damage is so relevant and you're not always going to hit a land.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, Goblin Guide can just be a one-sided telepathy because, you know, you're serving and you see what they have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think I would have kept the Goblin Guide. I think that 1 damage is absolutely significant.
But Alexander's clearly played the deck more than we have, so we've got a pretty good idea of what's going on. Okay, so we have the deck list in front of us now.
Oh, great.
So we can see what's going on here. So
looking at Gerry's list.
So looking at Gerry's list, it looks pretty stock. You have, you know, all the usual vampire suspects. He does have Captivating Vampire and a full 4 Gatekeepers. But interestingly enough, he's got a couple cool cards in the main deck for his spells. He's got Grim Discovery, which is kind of a neat little addition. Saw some play back when the deck first came out, but hasn't seen a lot recently.
Yeah, it has a good interaction with the Bloodghasts.
Yeah.
Being able to grab a land to
right.
to
I mean,
replay the Bloodghast.
And you have all these fetch lands, so you know you can go get your Highborn, which is one of the most important cards in the deck, or your Captivating Vampires, or your Gatekeepers, and return them. He's also got a Singleton Feast of Blood and the always spicy 1 Eldrazi monument, just in case of emergencies.
Yeah, gotta love that monument.
I wonder how many times he's going to top deck that monument today to take it down. Otherwise, the deck list looks pretty standard. You know, a couple things here and there. He's got some main deck dark tutelages, but nothing that absurd. Over on the Alex Sperling side, or yeah, Alexander Sperling. Let's see. Looks like a very stock Boros list. We've got 4 Squadron Hawks main deck, which we talked about with Kibler a little earlier, and he's got Mark of Mutiny main deck, which is pretty good, and 1 Cost of the Hammer. This looks pretty close to the list that won the Star City Games Open Series last week.
Yeah,
I'd be interested in pulling up on our screen now, and we'll see what the list of which was last week was. This looks very similar. But it's got all the usual suspects you would expect out of a deck like this. You know, it's got your Stepplinks, your GOPs, Goblin Guide, Spike Shot Elder, and all the equipment that goes along with it. So going back to the game now, it looks like Gerry started to take a little bit of control. It looks like Sperling is a little down on cards, and Gerry's just been able to press his advantage. He is serving in with that Stoneforge Mystic, though, which could prove to be a pretty big threat. Gerry's in the tank. Alright, cracks. It's going to be a little more damage for that Stoneforge Mystic, but it's going to be a rough spot for Sperling. Of course, if he just draws Squadron Hawk, he's going to be ahead. So, alright, so we have Pat McGregor's list that he used to win the Open Series with last week. And let's see, some of the differences here. There's 1 less adventuring gear.
Right, 1 less Journey to Nowhere.
Journey to Nowhere.
But he's got the main deck Mark of Mutiny.
And he has main deck Mark of Mutiny in that spot, and he also has 1 less Koth of the Hammer.
Yeah.
So he's not choosing to run 2 Koths, he's just running 1. But he's got Burst Lightning too, which is a little bit different. Going down to the sideboard, looks like a lot of it is similar. He's not running.
Looks like he basically moved that Koth from the main.
He just moved that Koth to the sideboard. Yeah.
Spark Mage, Ruin Blaster.
He has all the cards he took out from the main deck are just sitting in the sideboard, and the Mark of Mutinies are in the main deck instead. And I think he wanted the Marksman just so he could grab some of the like Titans or whatever out of Genesis Wave, or of course Primeval Titan out of Valakut.
Yeah, this is another maybe a good example of the 75 card deck list as Kibler was just talking about. I mean, we have 75 cards just kind of switched around between the sideboard and the main deck.
Yeah, exactly. That way, what you want to do is you want to have the cards that are good against the majority of the field, the main deck, and then you can sideboard the cards that you need against other decks, right? Like, right. I mean, sometimes it's not always right to main deck all, Mark of Mutiny, but in this particular format, it might very well be.
Yeah, obviously, Alexander was expecting to face more Titans with the Mark of Mutiny in the main.
Yeah, and maybe even, a resurgence of Baneslayer Angels potentially. Like, who knows what exactly went into his thought process, but it's obviously put him at the 2-0 bracket. Alex drew, or maybe he didn't draw, but he at least cast a Squadron Hawk here, which is very good. That's the card he needed to get back in the game, but Gerry's threatening to pull it away. He's got that Captivating Vampire there, which is really going to get things messy. He's going to lay his... oh, wow, he's got 2 Colostra Highborns in his hand. He's going to lay 1 next turn, and things are going to start going downhill. The kind of tricky thing with the Vampire is that Captivating Vampire is that it makes whatever it takes a Vampire. So if you play a Highborn and then you just chump block with the cards you keep taking, you can drain them for 2 every single time.
Yeah, it's Captivating Vampire is one of those cards that I think, at least when I first looked at it, I didn't really think much of it. It looked like maybe it'll see some play, but it's really interesting to see what people are doing with it recently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I hadn't seen Captivating Vampire played very much. Obviously, we had Vampire Nocturnus and M10, which was huge for the Vampires deck. That was like the card. You played your Nocturnus, and if you hit a black card you swung over, you almost always won. But now, with M11, we got Captivating Vampire. The Vampires deck won on the downswing. But with this resurgence of the more aggro Vampire strategy with, Pulse Tracker and a lot of the really cheap Vampires to play with the Ceres here, it's really seen a lot of play. Although, interestingly enough, the first time I played against Captivating Vampire, I played against it at Nationals this year, and my opponent had drafted 3 Captivating Vampires. And he had triple Captivating Vampire, a bunch of Saraseer, some Barony Vampires. It was scary enough then. And then seeing it in Standard, it's so huge, you know. You can tap out for a Titan, and if you just go untap Captivating Vampire, seal your Titan, it just doesn't even matter. You just cast a Titan. So looking back to the game, that Squadron Hawk is definitely ready to go on an adventure. It's got a Sword of Body in mind and an adventuring gear on it, and it's swinging through. But those double Highborns from Gerry are looking to be pretty strong, although that Tectonic Edge is certainly hurting him here. He's going to play the Highborn and then probably take the Hawk when it tries to attack next turn, which is great for Gerry because it essentially turns off the equipment, since he'll always be able to nab whatever
he equips,
is attached to. Right.
Now, you just mentioned about Tectonic Edge, and this is one of the reasons Spreading Seas is seeing, I think, or is so good against the field of vampires, because, you know, that turn 2 Spreading Seas on one of their swamps immediately slows them down a lot. You know, I know we're not going to see any Spreading Seas in this particular match, but
seems unlikely.
You know, it's something of note that those non-black lands can really actually hurt the vampire player.
Yeah, I mean, Gerry is opting to play Tectonic Edge in his Vampires deck. He just has 1, I believe. But yeah, he has 2 edges in the main deck and a 3rd in the sideboard. Okay. And I mean, that enough can really hurt your draws if you draw too many of them, you know, because you play it and, well, crap, you know, I drew my Swamp and my Tectonic Edge. I can't cast my turn 2 Vampire now. But, you know, obviously you want to be able to kill man lands, be able to take down Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. But combined with Spreading Seas, that could be a big issue. So that game just ended on the back of a Burst Lightning. And that was it. Alexander Sperling took it down. Burst Lightning was just enough as Gerry was starting to pick up the pace. And they're headed into game 2 here. Let's see what we think they're going to get. So Sperling is probably going to pick up that Journey to Nowhere for sure, and the 2 Arc Trails. Cunning Spark Mage is a very good card against that archetype because it knocks down Blood Ghasts, although I think Gerry should probably take those out. But it knocks down Saraseer, Blood Ghast, Pulse Tracker, all those X1s. And so I think we'll likely see Cunning Spark Mage, Arc Trail, and Journey to Nowhere out of Sperling's deck. And in Gerry's sideboard, let's see, the Disfigures and Skin Render are definitely going to come in, as well as the Lone Doomblade. I wonder if we'll see the Hex Mages come out, just so that he has a blocker. Probably not. It might be a little slow, but it can start battling if the situation's right. Like, for example, it can trade with trade with a 3/3 GOP if you had Captivating Vampire. But I doubt we'll see Hex Mage. I think mostly he's just going to bring in the 5 removal cards and try and combat it that way. Gerry will be on the play this game, which is huge in this matchup. You know, the way beatdown matchups normally work is you really want to be on the play because you can just kind of set the tempo of the game. You play your creatures first, you're attacking first, and so when you're both playing 1 and 2 drops, you get to start off on the front, and they have to go on the back foot immediately.
Did you say you think he's going to bring in the Skin Render?
I think he'll bring in the Skin Render. I think there's only 1, but I think having the comes into play effect to kill a creature is really good, and being able to destroy something is very strong.
Yeah, absolutely, and just having a blocker there, or at least a blocker threatening to block anyway.
It's almost like Flame Concavu.
It is. Now that was something that was mentioned last week on the coverage, and this was something we were talking about, Big Head Joe and I on Yo MTG Caps this past week about Skin Render versus Flame Concavu. Flame Concavu was a heavily played card back when it was in Standard, and when it comes into play, it deals 4 damage to target creature. Skin Render comes into play, deals, puts 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. So the question was, what is better, 4 damage or 3 -1/-1 counters? Obviously, the -1/-1 counter just up against 1 damage, I think is better. But if you could choose between having something that dealt 4 damage versus something that puts 3 -1/-1 counters on something, which would you rather have? I feel like the 4 damage is more relevant just because you can kill something bigger. But there aren't really a lot of X4s in the format right now. I almost feel like not as if we have the option anyway in the current standard to play Flame Tongue Kavu, but what's better, -1/-1 counters, 3 -1/-1 counters, or 4 damage?
Yeah, I think I would lean toward. It's interesting because a lot of people were saying the Flame Tongue Kavu was better, but I think I'd actually lean toward the Skin Render in a lot of situations. Yes, it's black. Obviously, they're different colors, so different decks are going to play them. But usually the 4 damage will kill the same thing that 3 -1/-1 counters will kill. But the ability to shrink down a Titan or any other large creature is a huge deal.
The only thing about that, though, about the Titans, is that they're still, I think, 6/6, being a 6/6 creature, that's relevant, but I feel like the Titans are relevant more for their abilities, which, fine, my 3/3 Primeval Titan is going to search up 2 Valakut, or whatever.
Even shrinking like a Baneslayer Angel or something.
Yeah, something that doesn't have, the Titan comes into play and attack ability is a lot better target for the -1/-1 counters, but you almost feel like, do the Skin Renders, like, for instance, do you expect him to bring in Skin Render against something like Valakut? Probably not.
But I mean, of course, Flame Tongue Kavu you wouldn't bring in against Valakut either.
That's true.
Although, actually, it does kill Overgrown Battlement, which is interesting. And going back to that, back in Invasion when Flame Tongue Kavu was around, there were a lot of 4 toughness creatures that you had to kill, so the extra point would have made a big difference. Where in today's world, maybe not quite as much. But of course, that's an alternate reality. Going back to the game we have in front of us, looks like Gerry has taken a quick start with Viscera Seer and Vampire Hexmage, so he did bring the Hexmages in to block Goblin Guide. But the Goblin Guide gets Burst Lightning, but it gets a swing in, but it does herald Gatekeeper Malakir for Gerry next turn. And I expect here comes Gatekeeper, yep. That's one of the most gratifying plays in recent history, is playing Gatekeeper, getting rid of your opponent's early creature. It just feels so good when you do it.
Yeah, the 2-for-1 with the Gatekeeper, and now the Skin Render option doing the same kind of thing against Boros. It's a big...
Right, exactly. Like, imagine if he just cast Skin Render here. It's just such a beating, because he's going to go, kill your creature, I've got a creature, kill your creature, I've got a creature.
Right.
And that's how you stay ahead. Oh, and here comes Gatekeeper. Oh no,
that's
never mind. Captivating Vampire. So Gerry's decided to go on the offensive here. And I think maybe what he's hoping is his opponent's going to equip up his plated GOP with Basilisk Caller. Be like, okay, well, it's got First Strike, it's got Death Touch, I'll kill everything. And then he's just going to go untap Gatekeeper. Yep, and there he goes. Gerry made him fall right into his trap.
No blocks.
Yeah, no blocks.
Just 3.
So GOP just gets in for 3. He's saving the fetch land for a rainy day.
He's worried about Pyroclasm, maybe.
No, I don't think we'll see much Pyroclasming here today. Gerry considers his options, but is that 3 Vampire Lessers? Or it's a lot of 1-drops, I think, is what Gerry has in his hand in addition to those Gatekeepers. But I still really feel like you want to just go for that Gatekeeper here and take that GOP out of the way. But Gerry's played his deck a lot more than I have, so we'll see what he does. He cracks the fetch land first, which indicates to me he's going to cast... Oh, wait, no. He just casts 2 Vampires and steals the plated GOP.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If he's got the 1-drops. I didn't get to see his hand, but let's see.
Oh, man, Captain Vampire, Viscera Seer.
Yeah, he's got the option to steal that.
He just passes.
Right.
It's like, all right, do your worst.
That's like one of my favorite cards, with the Dalkin Shackles. I used to love to just sit there with that. And just
your favorite and your opponent's least favorite.
Exactly.
As usual.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you want to do? Good, play something. Play a creature.
Yeah, and I think a lot of players might be tempted to attack there. You're like, well, I've got so many points of power. That's what, 3, 4, 5, or no, sorry, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 points of power you could have just swung with. But why bother? All you have to do is you're just going to take his creature there.
Right.
And then instead of just dealing 10 damage and maybe giving your opponent a small out to win the game, you just take their guy and there's just no way they're ever going to have a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, as we saw, Gerry got the game firmly under his control last round, and then his opponent just had the Burst Lightning to, finish him off. Right. And if you just take that control early, it's very hard to get anywhere.
So we've got an attacking Geopede, which is, at the moment, I believe, just an 0-1. So he says, here, take the Geopede.
And I'll make Geopede a Vampire, thank you very much.
He's just forcing Gerry to use his captivating Vampire ability.
Yeah, but I mean, forcing him to use that ability isn't that much. That's obviously what he was going to do anyway.
Right.
And yes, I'll take your creature. That sounds quite nice.
Right.
And the cute thing is Gerry actually has fetch lands in his deck, so he can be like, all right, crack my fetch land, attack you for 7 with my plated GOP, gain 7 life if he doesn't move off that Basilisk Collar.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. Like he has to play a creature and get the Basilisk Collar back, or else now that Basilisk Collar's helping Gerry.
And here comes Journey to Nowhere. I only gets rid of one of the vampires though, which I think is what he probably had to do. But I mean, Sperling is in a pretty rough spot here. I mean, he has a second Journey to Nowhere. Okay, he takes the other vampire away, but still, he's going to face down a lot of damage this turn. That Basilisk Collar is going to gain some life. Let's see what's going on. So Gerry gets to scry his Viserys here, and that's one of the nice interactions in the vampire deck too. Is you're like, all right, well, you kill my creature. Well, let's see if I can find another creature. Or, find another captivating vampire. And when your opponent uses Viserys here and puts it back on top, it's always kind of scary. So let's see. So Gerry draws.
Lifelink is the controller.
And
okay, so I'll gain a life by that.
In the tank right now.
Yeah, it looks like they were checking on the same thing I was just checking on about the lifelink on the Basilisk Collar. Who's going to gain the life?
Right, and Gerry will gain it because it gives it to the creature. Unlike some other cards, which might be on the equipment, the Basilisk Collar actually grants the ability to the creature. So it looks like Gerry didn't have a land to pump up that GOP, so it only got in for 1, but he still was able to swing in for a total of 5, and his opponent doesn't have anything. But that double Journey from Nowhere was very good for Sperling. Like that was huge.
One of those situations. All right,
and here comes Cunning Spark Mage, which is definitely going to be a big issue. Right. Gerry hopefully has Disfigure. He's not digging with his Viserys here, he left a card on top, so he still has that Gatekeeper in his hand. And he drew the 1 Eldrazi Monument this turn, so that might actually come into play.
Oh, right.
Alright, so here comes the Gatekeeper to knock down that Cunning Spark Mage. And it's likely that, I'd say that GOP is probably going to take it.
Yeah, probably going to.
I mean, he has 2 Viserys here, so he's going to be able to scry no matter what happens continuously, and you don't want to just, start taking 6 damage or 5 damage from a fetch land.
The interesting thing is that that GOP is still a vampire even without the Gatekeeper. I mean, even without the Captivating Vampire in play, isn't that correct?
Yes, it's
irrelevant now, but
if there's Colostra Highborn or something, it could really, really matter. Alright, so Gerry serves in and then plays the Lacerator.
Good timing for the Lacerator too. Under 10 life.
Exactly. And I see Arc Trail, which is going to do some damage. That's a big blowout in this matchup. But Gerry still firmly controlled the game. Although I could see Sperling swinging high if he manages to get that collar on the creature. Ooh, double Arc Trail.
Wow.
Very nice.
We do have a match sheet where you can find yourself a partner and play 2-Headed Giant Seal this afternoon. Come on over to the side event registration by the Shivan Dragons, and you can sign up for 2-Headed Giant with a mystery partner.
That is ridiculous. He goes from a double Journey turn to a double Arc Trail turn.
And granted, he doesn't have any creatures. Oh, he just ships the card. He knows what it is. Sperling's done a great job this game. It just shows you how robust that Boros deck is, because it looked for a second like there was no way he was going to be able to get back in it.
Yeah.
And then, he just double Journey, double Arc Trail. I mean, it really could have a lot of different avenues of play. But, he's still down to 3 life facing down a bunch of creatures. He doesn't have any threats of his own. But if he had to, drawn Squadron Hawk there or something, it would have been totally devastating for Gerry.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So, very close. Well played by Sperling, but Gerry takes game 2, and we're off to game 3. And once again, Sperling is going to be on the play here, which is so huge for this matchup.
Yeah, we've seen both players on the play, I think, win their games. So.
And I mean, you can do so many devastating things on the play with that Boros deck, right? You go turn 1, Goblin Guide, turn 2, Geopede, and then maybe he tries to assemble some blockers, and Gerry just goes, Orc Trail, kill both of your creatures, and it's a total mess. So I think the key for Gerry in the third game, what we're going to have to look for is the removal. If he can, does he have the Disfigure to kill the first guy, Does he have the Gatekeeper on turn 3 when he really needs it? And if he can just maintain and control the amount of creatures Sperling plays, I think he's going to be okay. But if he's relying on his creatures to save him, it could become very tricky.
I got a question for you. Who's the beatdown?
I think the beatdown in this matchup on the play, this game, I think for game 3, beatdown is Sperling. He's going to be attacking. I think Gerry has to be reactive with removal. I think that just really harkens back to one of the most important articles ever written, Who's the Beatdown, by Mike Flores. And if you have not read this article, go to Star City Games, listen to this in the background. You can listen to our melodious, soothing voices,
good or no?
however you feel about them. And
How you doing?
read Mike's article. It's a classic, and in every game of Magic, it's just so important. Like Kibler was saying earlier, with this Ka-Go deck, sometimes that deck's the aggressor. You just want to tap out, play your Elspeth, play your Squadron Hawks, attack, do whatever you have to do. And then there are other games where you want to be the control deck, right?
Yeah, if you are interested in checking out Who's the Beatdown, you can read it. You can also listen to Mike Flores reading it. He recorded a podcast a couple years ago regarding the Who's the Beatdown. Like, he recorded it reading the article, and I believe that's available on top8magic.com, I think. So for those of you who might have a long ride to work, you can just download that and give it a listen.
Yeah, Mike's recorded not only Who's the Beatdown, but a couple other great articles as well. And I've listened to his Who's the Beatdown one so many times. It's always just a good primer. Another one of my favorites is How to Win a PTQ. That's a great article by Mike. And every time I go to a PTQ, like, I try and listen to it the day before on my ride there, and it just kind of gets me pumped up. And it's almost psychological. So much of winning in Magic can really be attributed to the psyche, I feel. And if you feel like you're going to win, not just telling yourself, I'm going to beat everybody in the room, but if you legitimately feel like you can win the tournament, I think that's so huge. And knowing what's going on, as well as like constantly having it restated, is really important for that end.
Yeah, it's Mike is one of those legends of the game, the game theory, and we're happy to have him back on Star City Games.
Yeah, let me tell you, when I refreshed my browser last week and I saw Mike Flores, a brand new article on Star City, I was extraordinarily happy. And not only was it a good article, but it had videos, it had great content, and it also had his daughter Bella commentating on his games, which if you haven't seen yet, you really should go check out. It's just adorable.
She's classic. Like, it's just fantastic to hear her, and it's unbelievable. Like, to think, he wrote actually in a blog post, I think yesterday or early this morning, about how people assume that his daughter is getting all of her, I guess, she's influenced so much by him, but he claims that she's kind of finding things on her own. Check out 5withflores.com to read about that. In the meantime, we're back here with Game 3. We're Game 3 in Round 3 of the Star City Games San Jose Standard Open Series. This is Joey Pasco with Gavin Verhey, and we've got Gerry Thompson versus Alexander Sperling. Obviously splitting 1-1 so far in the match, and the winning player so far has been whoever is on the play, and that's relevant in this matchup. In this particular game, Sperling on the play went, looks like turn 1 fetch land into Spike Shot Elder, and I'm sorry, turn 1 Mountain into Spike Shot Elder, or did he play 2 fetch lands? Having trouble seeing his graveyard, but anyway, Spike Shot Elder comes out, and Gerry playing with the Duresses this game. Another example of maybe Sperling being the beatdown. Gerry playing some more control-ish cards.
Right, and I don't think that's something that a lot of people would normally do, but you brought in those Duresses so you can pluck those Arc Trails and Drain Nowhere, so we saw it be so huge last game, because Gerry has to keep the board presence, and if he just gets Arc Trailed or something, it can really put him behind. I doubt he brought in all 4 of his Duresses, but having a couple so you can maintain the pace of the game is really huge. Spending turn 1 dressing isn't a big deal. And it looks like he kept his Blood Gas in on the draw, and so he's going to try and play for a long game plan where we can really use those Blood Gas, and when he goes on the beatdown, he's really going to want them.
That particular one's not going to be doing too much anymore this game.
That one is pretty much done for. Oh, and here comes another Duress from Gerry.
Well, not another Duress, that's the one I saw.
That's the one you saw.
His first Duress.
Yeah. And he's going to pluck that oh, this is an interesting decision. That sword or that journey, and it really depends on what Gerry's plan is here. I almost feel like you just take the sword, and then you plan to bank on your other guys to get past the journey, but it's possible that he might just need for that journey to be out of there.
Right, as you were saying about him maintaining board presence, it's going to be tough when he knows he's got basically 2 removal spells in his hand, if you count the Spark Mage as a removal spell, which you pretty much have to.
So he takes the sword, which is I think that it has to be the right play, but it is hard leaving that journey in your opponent's hand. Although I think if his opponent journeys the highboard here, it might actually be good for Gerry. It might try to be setting that play up, but we'll see what happens. I think. Are we just going to see the Spark Mage come down here and then try and go Elder Spark Mage to finish off that highboard next turn? Or?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, having Elder and Spark Mage online at the same time, that's crucial. I mean, so many of Gerry's creatures are 1 or 2 toughies.
Exactly.
And being able to just every turn, I'm going to take out whatever it is you try to play. Good luck. But strangely, it puts it almost feels like the Boros deck becomes again the control deck in taking out all the opposing creatures. But there's the journey for the highboard.
So Sperling cracks his fetch land, thinks, and then opts to go for the journey, and cracks it for 1 with that Elder. And looks like Gerry has another Duress in his hand, a Highborn, and is that 2 Hex Mages? I think that is.
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of unfortunate that his opponent did go for that journey because, Gerry could have plucked it.
Yeah, not only was Gerry hoping to set up the Spark Mage from his opponent, but those Vampire Hex Mages are certainly not looking very good right now.
And there's a dead Duress,
so
nothing to take.
It's interesting. Gerry opts to go for the Duress there. So he knew what his opponent's hand was last turn, but he was like, okay, well maybe Sperling drew something, and I really have to get it out, which is fair.
Yeah.
He can't drain him if he attempts to kill the Highborn now, but I doubt that's going to happen. Most likely his opponent is just going to run out that Cunning Spark Mage and then trying to start knocking out his creatures 1 by 1.
Yeah.
And Gerry really needs to draw a removal spell here, because if that engine gets active, it's going to be so hard for Gerry to win this game.
Absolutely.
How many cards?
So his opponent has, well, now he's got 3 cards. It looks like maybe a Mystic. So Sperling looks like he has Spark Mage, possibly Mystic, and a land. Yeah, there's the.
Here comes the Stoneforge Mystic. And if he suits up that Elder with Basilisk Collar, it could be a rough day for Gerry indeed.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's going for.
Yeah, Gerry needs to draw.
Yeah,
he needs to draw a Disfigure now. If he draws a Disfigure, even then he still has to. He would have to not only kill that Spike Shot Elder, but also find a way to deal with that Cunning Spark Mage too, because both of them are so threatening with that Basilisk Collar.
Yeah.
And the collar comes down.
He needs 2 removal spells.
Yep. And we know he doesn't have any yet. There's another Highborn. So his hand is Highborn, Hex Mage, Hex Mage.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he can't even overload the board, really.
Yeah. Now he's looking for. This Hex Mage is not looking so hot, although I understand why he needs them, just so you can block the Goblin guys on the draw. I don't know if I would have brought them in, but I think that's, Gerry knows what he's doing, and I think it was a good play in retrospect by him.
There's another Highborn.
Alright, so he just opts to go for another Highborn, and there we go. He's trying to sneak in some points of damage. The opponent he's not going to block, so he gets in with that Highborn. And he tries to bluff this figure, but it's going to be rough going for Gerry here.
Yeah. He's at least got the ability to drain if Sperling ends up taking out one of the Highborns with the Elder Collar combo. So it looks like Mystic got in for 1, and he's cracking a fetch. He can certainly. Oh, it looks like. Yeah, he can't exactly equip and then use the Elder's ability, but Oh, he goes for Arc Trail.
1 to use.
All right. Oh, Arc Trail.
So,
What a beating.
Declared 2 and 1, and then.
And he plucks that Arc Trail, and this is going to be. I guess it's not really even all that rough for Gerry, just because he was going to have to lose. He's going to probably end up losing his creatures anyway.
right, so it looks like Gerry drained. Did he?
What was that he just drawn? Was that a Grim Discovery?
I missed it. I see a Hex Mage on top.
Hex Mage on top. Oh, Captivating Vampire.
I'm at 13.
The Vampire not quite going to be enough help here.
You missed a fetch land. Oh, okay.
I mean, he can play out the Hex Mage and just draw out an activation from a Cunning Spark Mage that Sperling's likely to cast next turn. But it's still a rough spot. Gerry really needs to hit running removal spells here.
Yeah, his opponent seems to be able to do that, but Gerry hasn't.
Yeah.
There you got a nice shot of Gerry with some railbirds.
Go. 9? Yep.
Alright, well, Gerry ended up going for the Captivating Vampire. And yep, he just opts to knock it off with the Spike Shot Elder. He gets in. And I mean, Gerry's still in it because I was running removal spells, but it's not going to be easy.
You're attacking me for 2.
See how many he has access to.
He's got access to
11, not counting Gatekeeper, which isn't going to do anything right now.
God.
So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 active removal spells. Highborn's going to get in again. Sperling's still taking his time to think through his moves, which is pretty important, because a lot of players I think would just rush, you know, to be like, all right, well, this is so far ahead, I'll just do this and this and this, and you can make a lot of mistakes that way.
Yeah.
Sperling is taking his time, deliberately figuring out what Gerry is trying to play for, what happens if he drew Disfigure. I mean, obviously, I think he's probably figured out by now that Gerry doesn't have Disfigure in his hand, because he would have cast it already. But if he just drew it, he doesn't want to just get blown out.
Right.
And it's important to note that if you disfigure a Spike Shot Elder in response to his activation, no damage will occur because the game sees it as being a -1/-1 when the ability resolves. And, you know, obviously, so if you just waste the mana to do that, that could be a huge issue.
Wait a minute, so Disfigure goes on the stack, targeting the Elder.
No, so in response to the Elder's ability. So if the Elder pings something, and you disfigure it in response.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, then the Elder will be put into a graveyard, but it looks at last known information to check, and the Spike Shot Elder is 0 now.
Okay, that makes sense. I was switching the stack there because I was thinking responding to the Disfigure, but yeah, it's the Disfigure in response that does that.
Yeah, if it's interesting. If you use the Elder in response to the Disfigure, then
you're all right.
Then you're fine, but if the Disfigure happens in response, it could be rough. So yep, he opts to shoot the Highborn, and he drew Doomblade, which is not Disfigure, which would have been a total blowout, but you can still Doomblade that Elder potentially to get some value, killing off the Highborn. Gerry drew one of the removal spells he needed. Let's see if he can hit the others.
Yeah, we know.
If I kill that in response, it still uses last known information.
Are they talking about Disfigure right now? For some reason, I thought they said something about the last known information, but it was just one quick comment, so they're not really talking now. No, I don't hear much of it.
Alright, so yeah, so he's going to kill that Highborn and drain him for 2, but Well, if he's got that Doomblade, you probably blow the Doomblade on that Elder now.
Yeah, force him to use the Spark Mage.
Yeah, force him to bring down the Spark Mage, and the Spark Mage will take down the Hex Mage.
Turn 6.
And then, hopefully Gerry draws another removal spell. I wonder if Gerry was considering there for a second if, I wonder if he was considering just cracking his Hex Mage there and draining it for 2, because he knows that the Spark Mage is going to come down this turn and just kill the Hex Mage anyway, and then you end up picking up 2 life on the exchange.
Yeah.
But he opted to keep the Hex Mage, preventing a cough or something like that. We can't quite see what's in Sperling's hand. It's a little off camera right now. But we know that Spark Mage is still there from an earlier duress.
Step 1. Go.
Alright. So, GOP here. Alright. Gerry drew the Disfigure to take down that Cunning Spark Mage. So he found the 2 removal spells he needed. Let's see if it'll be enough. It's still going to be a little rough. Looks like Sperling's looking at a Goblin Guide. And, but he's got still has played a Geopede and Venturing Gear and Basilisk Collar, which are all going to be huge issues.
Absolutely.
And Sperling managed to get him down to 6, Thompson managed to get Sperling down to 6, but with that Basilisk Collar, it's going to undo a lot of Gerry's hard work.
What's in Gerry's hand? There's a...
I think, is that second Hex Mage still sitting in his hand?
I think so, yeah.
No, last turn he cast the Hex Mage.
Right, but he had 2 Hex Mages.
So he's got Duress and Bloodghast. So Duress, see that Goblin Guide. And here comes Bloodghast, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And we are rejoined in the booth by Brian Kibler.
Hello.
Hello. How did you do this round, Brian?
I was the victor in my match. I played against a mono black control deck.
Huh.
Doomblade was not the best card against Squadron Hawk.
No.
So right now we're in game 3. If you're just joining us, we're in game 3 of this match between Gerry Thompson and Alexander Sperling. You are watching SCG Live, which is live at the Star City Games Open Series here in San Jose. And Gerry's tried valiantly to fight back this game, but it's starting to look like it's slipping out of his grasp.
Yeah, he's been on the back foot most of this game.
Ooh, that's a Basilisk Collar.
Yeah.
And he has a Bloodghast.
Yeah, Gerry successfully managed to play, so we drew a Disfigure and a Doomblade to kill off Cunning Spark Mage. Killed Disfigure and Doomblade, Cunning Spark Mage, and Spike Shot Elder. But, yep, and that's the game. Gerry packs it in.
Sperling the younger is a victor.
So it is Matt Sperling.
It is Matt Sperling. Look at him. How do you not realize his brother? He looks exactly like him.
I was going to make that comment, but I wasn't sure.